Cancer. Someone came to your door. I need you to really let that land for a second before we go any further. Not metaphorically, not as some vague, energetic intrusion, but physically, literally in the material world. Someone who carries a very specific kind of darkness toward you made their way to where you live and they were looking for something. Maybe evidence that what they had been doing was working. Maybe confirmation that you were crumbling the way they needed you to be crumbling. Maybe they just needed to see you with their own eyes because the obsession had gotten that heavy. This is a general reading for entertainment purposes. I'm interpreting the energy I see in these cards. And as always, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. This is not meant to replace professional advice of any kind. What I can tell you right now, before I pull a single card, is that this person has been working against you in ways that go beyond normal conflict or jealousy. The energy I'm sensing suggests that witchcraft rituals or deliberate spiritual harm was involved. And I know that might sound extreme, but something about your situation drew me to read for you today. And the theme that kept surfacing was this: they tried. They tried with everything they had. They tried with intention and with darkness and with tools that most people would never consider picking up. And it did not bring you down. Not even close. Let's find out why. Okay, we already have a jumper. And I want you to notice something. Because the moment I started shuffling for you today, the energy in my hands felt different, heavier. Like the deck itself recognized whose reading this was and had something urgent to say. A card flew right out before I could even settle into the rhythm. And that kind of force means whatever is coming through has been waiting to be seen for a long time. All right, Cancer, the deck has spoken before I even asked it a question. So let's honor that. Let's look at what came through on its own, what jumped into my hands and refused to stay hidden. The first card is the Nine of Cups. Cancer, when this card landed, I want you to hear something important. After everything this person put you through, after all the dark intention and the watching and the showing up where they had no business showing up, I am not standing here telling you that you walked away untouched. You felt it. Some part of you registered every single thing that was directed at you, even when you could not name what it was or where it was coming from. But Nine of Cups is pointing at something so specific right now that I need you to really take it in. Your capacity to love, your ability to still see goodness in the world, that quiet inner knowing that life is worth showing up for, that sense of wholeness that lives in you at a level deeper than any wound they could reach. That is what they were actually after. Not your circumstances, not your relationships, or your material life. They wanted to corrupt the thing at your very center. The part of you that can sit in genuine contentment without needing anyone's permission or validation to feel it. And here is what Nine of Cups is confirming with absolute clarity. They failed at the thing that mattered most. They could not touch it. Whatever rituals, whatever intentions, whatever darkness they carried to your doorstep, none of it could reach that deepest layer of who you are. You still have it. That core is still intact. And I want you to understand what that means, because it is not a small thing. It means that after everything, you are still fundamentally you. That is not luck. That is something they never had the power to take. You know, I have sat across from people who have been through something like this, and the ones who come out with their core still intact, they all share one thing. They never let the darkness teach them to become dark back. I have seen people lose that. And it is a different kind of loss than anything material. Watching someone keep that light alive after being targeted the way you have been, that is honestly one of the most quietly powerful things I have ever witnessed. All right, Cancer, let's keep this energy moving because there is so much more this reading wants to show us. I'm going to pull the next card now, and we have the Lovers. And the moment this card came up, something shifted in the energy for me because this is where the story actually begins. Not with the witchcraft, not with the showing up at your door, but here at a connection, at something that once existed between you and this person that carried real weight on both sides. I want to be clear that the Lovers is not always about romantic love, though it can be. What this card is really pointing to is a significant bond, a connection that meant something, a moment where two people were genuinely aligned in some way and both felt it. And at some point, that alignment broke. Maybe you made a choice that changed the dynamic. Maybe you stepped back from something they were not ready to let go of. Maybe you simply moved forward with your life in a direction that did not include them the way they wanted to be included. What I'm picking up is that the wound this person carries did not start with hatred. It started with something that felt like loss to them. And what is psychologically important here is that they never process that loss in a healthy way. Instead of moving through the grief of a connection changing or ending, they let it ferment. They let it sit and curdle over time into something much darker than heartbreak. The Lovers also speaks to the weight of conscious choice. Every decision you made that was right for you, every boundary you held, every step forward you took was experienced by this person as something being done to them. And that distorted perception is exactly what opened the door to everything that followed. They turned your freedom into their grievance. And that cancer is never something you were responsible for fixing or shrinking yourself to prevent. There is so much layering happening in this reading already, and we are just getting started. Let me pull the next card and see what comes through. And this is Two of Cups. And this one hits differently when you place it right after the Lovers, because now we are getting the full picture of who this person actually was to you. This was not a stranger. This was not someone operating from the shadows of your life who you barely knew. This was someone you let in. Someone you looked at and recognized something in, and they looked back at you and felt the same thing. That mutual recognition, that genuine moment of connection, that is what Two of Cups carries. And I need you to sit with that for a moment because it changes the entire weight of what they did. When a stranger wishes you ill, that is one thing. But this person had access. They knew something real about you. You had opened a door to them at some point, trusted them with proximity, allowed them into a space that not everyone gets to enter. And they took that access, that knowledge, that closeness, and they turned it into ammunition. What I'm sensing is that the karma around this situation is particularly heavy precisely because of this card. Two of Cups represents a bond built on genuine equality and mutual trust. And to weaponize that, to take something that was once clean and sincere and redirect it into dark intention, carries a spiritual consequence that is proportional to the depth of the original connection. The universe does not treat the betrayal of true trust lightly, and the cards are making that very clear right now. There is also something else here that I want to name. The fact that this connection was real at one point means that this person knew exactly what they were doing when they chose to go down this path. They were not acting out of ignorance. They knew you. They chose this anyway. And that conscious choice made from a place of former closeness is what sealed the karmic outcome we are about to see unfold in the cards ahead. The story is building in a way that I was not fully expecting, and I have a feeling the next card is going to shift something significant. Let me pull it now, and we have the King of Swords. And I want you to feel the energy shift that just happened in this reading because it is palpable. We have been looking at connection and history and the emotional roots of what this person did, and now this card cuts through all of that like a blade through fog. King of Swords does not deal in feelings or context or extenuating circumstances. It deals in one thing only: truth. Cold, precise, absolute truth. In the classic imagery, this king sits on his throne with his sword held straight up, cutting directly into the sky. He is not attacking. He is not defending. He is simply holding the standard of clarity upright against everything that tries to obscure it. And in this reading, that image is telling me something very specific. Every single thing this person did against you, every ritual, every intention, every moment of deliberate darkness they directed your way has been seen not by you necessarily, not by anyone in your immediate circle, but by something that operates at the level this king represents. A force of discernment so precise that no amount of secrecy or spiritual camouflage can obscure what was actually done. What I'm picking up is that King of Swords functions here as a cosmic witness. And the thing about a witness at this level is that it does not need your testimony or their confession to arrive at an accurate verdict. It simply observes and records with perfect clarity. Every layer of intention behind what they did, every choice they made consciously, every line they crossed, knowing exactly what they were crossing, all of it is held in the record that this card represents. There is also a protection element here that I do not want to overlook. King of Swords is sharp enough to intercept. What was sent toward you had to pass through that level of discernment first. And a great deal of it, I'm sensing, never made it through intact. The blade is that precise. This king does not preside over a situation where darkness gets to win simply because it was bold enough to try. Because what we are building toward in this reading is something I think you genuinely need to see laid out in full. Let me reach in and pull the next one, and this is the Six of Swords. And this is the card that I think is going to hit the closest to home for you, Cancer, because this one is speaking directly to something that actually happened in the physical world. Remember what we established at the beginning of this reading? This person came to your door. They showed up in your physical space during what the energy is telling me were the final moments of a plan that was already falling apart around them. And what did they find when they got there? That is the question this card is answering right now. They did not find ruins. They did not find evidence that anything they had done had left a mark. They found a life still moving, still intact, still carrying exactly that Nine of Cups energy we saw at the very beginning of this reading. That quiet fullness, that unbroken sense of wholeness that had driven them to this point in the first place. And I want you to understand what that moment must have felt like. For someone who had invested so much darkness into trying to dismantle you, to stand at your door and see that nothing worked, that is a specific kind of devastation that no ritual or intention can prepare a person for. And then Six of Swords shows us what happened next. They left not in triumph, not with anything they came to take, but in the heavy, silent recognition that it was over. The waters behind their boat are still disturbed, still carrying the turbulence of everything that happened, but the direction of movement tells the whole story. They are moving away from you. And your direction, Cancer, has always been toward calmer waters, toward light, toward a place their darkness was never equipped to follow. That gap between where they are headed and where you are headed will only keep growing. We are at a turning point in this reading, and I can feel the energy starting to shift in a very significant way. Let me pull what comes next. And we have the World. And I have to be honest with you, when this card came up, I felt something release in the energy of this reading because the World is not a card that leaves loose ends. It is not a card that says almost or soon or getting there. It is the card of absolute completion of a cycle that has closed so fully and so finally that there is genuinely nothing left unresolved within it. And in the context of everything we have been looking at, what I'm interpreting here is profound. Every single thing this person did against you, every ritual they performed, every intention they set, every time they drove past your life or showed up where they had no business being, all of it is now held within a completed cycle. Not a cycle that is still spinning, not a threat that is still active. A cycle that the world has closed with the kind of finality that does not ask for anyone's agreement or participation to be real. What strikes me about this card in this position is the imagery itself. The figure at the center is surrounded by a wreath, a complete unbroken circle. Nothing is getting in or out of that boundary that has not earned its place there. And what I'm sensing for you, Cancer, is that you are inside that circle, protected by the very completion of this chapter. The wreath is not something you built consciously. It formed around you as a natural consequence of staying true to who you are while someone else exhausted themselves trying to tear that down. The World also carries a witnessing quality similar to what we saw in the King of Swords. But where that card was about precise judgment, this one is about cosmic accounting. Everything has been seen, everything has been weighed, and the verdict that the World delivers is not subject to appeal. This chapter is closed. Cancer completely and permanently closed. And if the world just told us that the cycle is completely closed and the verdict has been delivered, I want to see what the cards show us about where this person actually finds themselves on the other side of all of that failure. Let me pull the next card now. And this is the Eight of Cups. And there is something almost poetic about this card appearing right after the world, because the world told us the cycle is closed, and Eight of Cups is showing us exactly what that closure looks like from their side. This is the image of someone walking away, not triumphantly, not with anything they came to collect, but with their back turned to everything they invested in, moving into darkness with their head down and their hands empty. What I want you to notice about Eight of Cups is that those cups are still standing. They are not broken or knocked over. Everything this person built in their obsession with bringing you down, all the energy, the rituals, the time, the emotional resources they poured into this, it is all still there behind them, intact, but abandoned because they cannot take it with them and they cannot use it anymore. There is nothing left to do with it except leave it behind and walk away from the wreckage of a plan that consumed them and produced nothing. What I'm picking up emotionally in this card is exhaustion at a very specific level. Not the exhaustion of someone who fought hard for something meaningful, but the exhaustion of someone who spent everything they had on something that was never going to work, and who now has to live with both the emptiness of failure and the weight of knowing what they chose to become in the process. That is a particular kind of tired that does not go away with rest. And Cancer, this is karma in its most honest and unglamorous form. Not dramatic, not explosive, just a person walking away in the dark with nothing to show for any of it. There is a psychological term for what this card is showing us. When someone builds their entire sense of power around destroying another person and that person simply refuses to fall, what follows is not just disappointment, it is a complete identity collapse. Because the reading is not done showing us what is really happening with this person right now. There is still more that needs to come to light. And the next card is the Eight of Swords. And this is the card that I think is the most karmic image in this entire reading so far, because it is showing us something that this person absolutely cannot see for themselves. The figure in this card is bound and blindfolded, standing in a circle of swords that press in from every direction. And the detail that matters most here is this: those swords were not put there by anyone else. They accumulated one by one through every choice this person made, every intention they set, every ritual they performed, thinking they were building weapons aimed at you. What I'm picking up is that each act of darkness they directed toward you created another sword in the circle closing around their own life. Every curse, every ritual, every moment of sustained malicious intention toward you added another blade to the prison they were constructing around themselves without realizing it. This is not poetic justice as a concept. This is how dark energy actually functions. When it is sent towards someone who is genuinely protected, it has nowhere to land. So it returns, and it returns with the full weight of the intention behind it and the blindfold. That is the detail I cannot move past in this reading. They still do not see it. Even now, with their life tightening around them, with things falling apart in ways they cannot fully explain, they are still not connecting what is happening to them with what they chose to do. They are looking outward for reasons, looking for external explanations for why nothing is working, why everything feels stuck, why the life they wanted keeps slipping further away. The swords are theirs, Cancer. Every single one of them, and you did not put a single one in place. What they built to destroy you became the very cage they cannot escape. We have been looking so deeply at what this person built against themselves, and now I want to see what the cards reveal next, because this reading still has more to say. Let me pull the next card. And this is the Empress. And when I saw this card, something clicked into place for me in a way that made the entire reading make sense on a completely different level. Because we have been asking the same question underneath every card we have pulled today. Why didn't it work? Why, with everything this person tried, with the intention and the rituals and the showing up at your door, why did none of it bring you down? And the Empress is the answer, the direct, unambiguous, complete answer. The Empress is the most ancient feminine force in the entire deck. She is not a constructed power. She is not a power that was granted or earned or built through strategy. She is the earth itself, the force that makes things grow, the energy that existed before any human being thought to pick up a ritual tool or speak a word of intention into the dark. She is surrounded by nature not as decoration, but as confirmation of what she is made of. And what I'm sensing for you, Cancer, is that you carry this energy in a way that is fundamental to who you are. Here is what that means in practical terms for this reading. What this person used against you was dark and human made. It had a beginning and a construction and a specific intention behind it. What protects you is none of those things. It is older than their methods. It is deeper than their reach. It is rooted in something that does not respond to the kind of darkness they were working with because it simply does not operate at that frequency. You cannot curse the earth into stopping spring from coming. You cannot ritual your way past something that was never operating within the same system as your darkness. That is why it did not work. Cancer, not luck, not coincidence. Something fundamental in you that they never had the tools to touch. We are coming to the final card of this reading now, Cancer, and I want you to take a breath with me before we look at it because what comes next is going to bring everything full circle. And the last card is the Two of Swords. And this is such a precise and honest way to close this reading because this card is not showing us your ending, Cancer. It is showing us theirs. The figure sits with eyes blindfolded and two swords crossed tightly over their chest, and the water behind them is still and going nowhere. This is the image of someone who has reached a complete standstill, not through peace or resolution, but through the total exhaustion of every option they had available to them. This is where this person is right now. After the rituals, after showing up at your door, after watching and waiting and investing everything they had into a plan that the world already told us has been permanently closed, they cannot move forward because every path toward you has been sealed. They cannot move backward because the weight of what they chose to become in this process is too heavy to simply walk away from cleanly. The crossed swords over their chest are not protecting them. They are holding them in place, frozen in the consequence of their own choices. What I'm picking up psychologically here is something very specific. This is not a person who has found peace with the outcome. This is a person who is suspended in the awareness that they played every card they had and lost every single one. The blindfold tells me they are still not fully facing what they did or why it brought them to this place. There is a refusal to see that lives inside that image. A kind of willful disconnection from accountability that keeps them locked exactly where they are. And you, Cancer, you are not in this card at all. You are never the one who is going to end up here. While they sit frozen in the consequence of their choices, your life has continued moving, growing, breathing. That contrast is not accidental. It is the most honest picture of karma I have seen in a reading in a long time. And Cancer, I have to be honest with you. Something is pulling at me right now. And I have learned to trust that feeling when it comes through this strongly during a reading. There is one more card that wants to come through for you today, and I feel like it has something very specific to confirm, and this card is the Page of Cups. And this is such a gentle and reassuring energy to land on after everything we have moved through today, because this card is not here to add more weight to the story. It is here to confirm something that I think you already knew, but perhaps needed to hear spoken out loud. Page of Cups brings messages through intuition, through feeling, through those quiet internal nudges that do not always come with logical explanation. And what this card is confirming right now is that everything you sensed was real. That feeling of being watched, that subtle shift in the energy around your home, that inexplicable heaviness that would settle over you sometimes without any obvious external cause. Your intuition was reading the situation with complete accuracy the entire time, even when you had no concrete evidence to point to. But there is something else Page of Cups carries in this position that I want you to take with you. The truth of everything that happened, the full picture of what was directed at you and what it cost. The person who directed it is making its way to you through channels that cannot be intercepted or controlled by anyone involved in this story. What was done in darkness is finding its way into the light, not through confrontation or exposure necessarily, but through the quiet, unstoppable movement of truth that this gentle page always carries. Cancer, I want you to sit with everything we just moved through together for a moment before we close, because this was not a light reading. This was heavy, this was real, and I want to honor that by not wrapping it up in something neat and comfortable that does not reflect what you actually went through. What was directed at you was serious. The intention behind it was serious. And if you felt it, if something in you registered that something was wrong, even when you could not name it, that feeling was valid. You were not imagining things. You were not being paranoid. Something real was happening around you, and your body and your spirit knew it before your mind could catch up. But here is what I also need you to hear. You made it through, not because nothing touched you, but because even in the middle of being touched by something dark and deliberate, something in you held. That is not a small thing, Cancer. That is actually everything. The fact that you are here still yourself, still standing, still capable of seeking clarity, instead of collapsing into bitterness. That took strength, real strength, and I hope you let yourself feel that today.